Moonlight in the starry sky. Sometimes I even swear I see her down on Filbert's Rise. I see those eyes down on Filbert's Rise.
To getting the brackets on now, these brackets along with the other ones over there on the bench, this is the parallel 4-link kit from Barnes four-wheel drive. It makes life a lot easier, but at the same time, like, because of the short side of this Kingpin 60, I'm still not quite perfect. So what I did was I had to trim some of this out rather than trimming into the housing. I'd rather trim the bracket, get this in here. And the same thing with the uprights, which I'll grab. And this is just part of the upright, but basically what's going to happen is we're gonna cut, well, I don't know about we, but I'm gonna cut the bottom of this bracket in here. Basically just get it on here, modify this bracket so I can just come into the housing onto the cast. And yeah, people are worried about welding the cast. I've been doing it for a very long time. There's a lot of videos on how people do it, and it's not that complicated. The worst thing about this is just getting all the old brackets off of this axle, and this is not the final cleanup. The goal is get these brackets on here, and then of course I've got the front axle out of the frame. So now we're basically ready to slide this in and then figure out where I want to modify and get my upper links mounted to. Now, a lot of times you'll see guys doing the 4 links and they'll just kind of tack these in place to kind of see where they want to be on the vehicle. For this application, I'm actually going to full send these. They're going to get fully welded on from this point forward. And the only reason I can get away with that is probably the biggest reason is the frame. There's really nothing in the way. So if you're doing this kind of 4-link kit with a truck that's already built, you've got different things in the way, you've got different cross members, steering box, you've got all this different stuff in the way. So a lot of times, yeah, it is recommended. Just kind of tack your axle brackets to where they need to be. And then from there, you know, you might end up moving. But the kit also makes it a little bit easier. And then the uprights can go. Just kind of an easy mock-up to get this. Now, thankfully, this axle has dually adapters sitting on it, which will come off. I will not be running the dually adapters. But it gives me a really good spot to set this and level this axle out. And then I can come by with an angle finder for all my brackets. So right now I'm just setting up the axle, kind of get my caster set as if it would be set in the vehicle, and then work my brackets from there. This being manual hubs, my front pinion angle, the pinion angle is not as important. Realistically, the caster's always more important than the pinion, but you know, sometimes like the other vehicles, it's a big deal because your Jeep XJs, your TJs, where the newer Dodge Rams, when that axle's turning full time, then your pinion angle's got to be right, and you end up sacrificing some caster. But in this case, it's somewhat easy. The only thing that's slowing me down is the AC's not working in the shop that well in July. So yeah, it's pretty good. All right, so the brackets are on. Figured I'd just try to do a quick video as I'm working on stuff. I mean, I know most of the time I just got the whole thing completed by then I'm talking about it. So try to mix it up a little bit. Now the lower control arms, my brackets down here, I did kind of cheat these up a little. Most people would kind of drop these down because what they want to do is they want to get a bigger space between their lower and their uppers. And there is a rule of thumb. I don't exactly know who made all the 4-link rules, but I try to stick to most of them. And the larger the tire, the bigger the spread you should have on that axle. But I'm willing to sacrifice that for a little bit because I wanted to cheat this up a little bit higher, and that's because of the Dodge wc12 frame. The frame itself is almost completely flat. So what that means is normally a frame would kind of swoop down a little bit. and that saves your lower control arm angle. The idea is to get the least amount of angle in that lower control arm. So cheating that a little bit is going to help it a little bit. Again, I don't think I'm ever taking this thing on any serious rock crawling expeditions, but it will function as one just as well. Even though the coilovers are going to be a little stiffer than what somebody would normally run, because I do want it street drivable. So, all right, so I got the axle in. 4 links are all sitting in exactly where it should be. If you're looking at this, this whole fender here is going to come over and sit right down that line here. The top part of the fender will get cut out. I know there's some purists that will probably hate me for it, but remember, the whole truck was completely smashed by a tree. Nobody was fixing this thing, which I do honestly believe the coilovers coming up through the fenders, kind of peeking through that peeked up through look. It is definitely going to give the right look for the build. It will tie in good with the crawler looking bed. And when I cut this out, I'm tempted to kind of maybe some round stock, trim it out. And I think that'll look really clean for it. 4-link wise, I wanted to have a little bit less of an angle. I'm right on the line. I'm at 10 degrees, both uppers and lowers. I'll go around the other side. I wanted to be a little bit less, but the biggest problem I was running into was the upper control arm, where I've got a lot of different things going on in here. So I've got my cab mount and then that support for the fender itself. I really can't go past that, and so every time you do a 4-link, you're gonna bend rules and kind of figure out what you want to do, what's going to work best for the application. The biggest thing is this being the original 41 Dodge wc12 frame, everything gets real narrow. We're talking 30 inches wide at the front of the frame. With that being there, it does give me a benefit of saying, okay, well, now I can run my upper control arms on the outside of the frame versus run them on the inside of the frame. The drawback to doing that is now I've got, I've got to fit everything past this. The plus side to it is I've got everything clear for my drivetrain, my exhaust. I know originally I wanted to run my exhaust down here on the outside of the frame, tuck them out. Doing this gives me plenty of room for the exhaust in there, and then it's going to be a good setup. So this angle right here, the coolest thing about this is I will be able to get this truck down. I see a lot of guys do these builds where they just cab swap it onto a 90s Dodge Ram. With doing that, they run into a couple of issues. One, the truck ends up with way too much lift, and that's the downside. Is I want to keep it practical. So if I want to have the crawler look, it should be kind of low. All the lift is coming out of the tires, and so far we're successful in that. So the axle is tucked up in there. I think I can get this a little bit lower with the drivetrain. Now, again, I can adjust these down. I can keep this height right here. I think if anything, I'm going to let this thing ride probably about a ½ an inch lower than where it's at. The only limiting factor for me going any lower than that is going to be my steering box sitting in here. So my steering box in here, that pitman arm is really close to that upper bracket. Again, that's why I ended up with more angle for the control arms themselves. I will chop the top of these brackets, put in some bump stops. It'll probably have about 3 inches of up travel and somewhere around 8 to 10 inches of down travel. This thing will actually crawl pretty good. And the cool thing is, for what I'm going to use it for, I doubt it's ever going to see some serious rock crawling trails, but it will ride smooth. It'll go down the road really nice, and that's the idea, is keep it practical. If I can keep it a little bit lower, then it's still a usable truck, and so that'll be good too. And there will be a cross member somewhere in here to here. I'm just leaving everything open. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking there's not that much bracing going on, it's going to get a lot stronger. I want to figure out exactly where the drivetrain is going to sit when we do the mock-up with the motor, the transmission, and then we can go back and do some bracing modifications. The only thing left to come in here is put in my track bar, pan hard bar, if you will. Barnes kit for the track bar, panhard bar. I just kind of went ahead and pre-welded this together so I can kind of figure out this way too tall for what I'm going to need. I'm probably going to go ahead and slice it here and then chop the top bracket off too. I do want to get a little bit more grab on it, so some of this will get cut. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this for the upper, because what I need to do is go on the inside of the frame. Since I've got the inside of the frame going right here, somewhere in here where I'll attach the track bar, panhard bar, I'm just kind of limited. Normally you see guys go on the outside of the frame. I'm going to end up going to the inside of the frame. I'll sacrifice a little bit of length on the bar itself. Kind of another broken rule. Yeah, you kind of want to keep your track bar the same length as your steering arm, but sometimes you just have to make things fit. The other idea, well, the reason that is because I have the steering box in the way and everything's tight. I got a lot going on in that area. The other thing is it'll still go together the way it's supposed to. You figure if you held out a rod 2 feet and you swiveled that down, you know, even at 5 or 6 inches, your side-to-side movement on that axle would probably be 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch. So a lot of people that'll talk about combating the bump steer, if you're running a Y-link or crossover steering, that really is fixing the majority of bump steer. I know the bump steer has been a thing with a lot of the older 4x4s where the steering was actually right there on the knuckle. I think this will work perfectly fine, and I've had some shorter track bars work just fine. One more drawback to what I ended up doing, in order to keep these springs away from my steering box, I am way tight on these knuckles. I wanted to do a high steer, but my high steer is going to be so close it's actually going to touch the coils, because I had to get these coils out as far as I could, which is no big deal. I'll go with the over-the-top Y-link crossover steering, which will still be a great steering. It won't be as high as a high steer, but it'll still be pretty good. And again, this thing ain't going off tearing up some trails. It might see some light trails and some trips to Lowe's. That's about where it's going to go, so it'll be great. So from here, if everything looks like it's still kind of rusty and you're seeing the OSFO residue all over the truck, yeah, I'm going to go wipe this whole thing down with some OSFO just to kind of keep some of the rust off it while we're still working. From here, the truck's going to start getting assembled. I'll start assembling everything for a mock-up, get everything fitted where it needs to be fitted, and then everything's assembly and start seeing it come together. And once it's all together, we get a good look at what it looks like and everything functions. We make some adjustments. Then I can start tearing everything apart and painting everything. So yeah, still a ton of work, but it's great to see some stuff start to come together. So thanks.
First morning I did see her coming in from the west. Storm clouds on the mountain and tears all down her breast. Tears are falling down on Filbert's rise. Up on the double divide, down on Filbert's rise. Down on Filbert's rise, down on Filbert's rise. Full well I knew her sorrow was no concern of mine, but as I took her in my arms, my own heart soon did pine. Hearts in sorrow down on Filbert's rise.